So today we are celebrating the winter solstice. It's a day of power. And so I thought that would be an excellent day to also offer refuge in Trikaya Buddhism. Now, taking refuge is a powerful step on the path. It's the declaration of telling yourself and eternity, I have suffered enough, get me off this crazy wheel. I've been around and around and around and around and I just want off. So we take refuge. We say, we've done enough games. We played these different types of escapisms long enough. We want freedom. We want liberation from suffering. We want enlightenment. When do we want it? We want it now. Because on the path of Trikaya Buddhism, we believe enlightenment is possible in this lifetime. We don't have to wait. There are other Buddhist paths that take a more scenic route, and you spend lifetimes just building merit and enjoying the views and doing good works and go around and around. Then you hope to be reborn in a better life that allows more support for your practice. And sorry. There was a weird message trying to change my language. But in Trikaya Buddhism, we don't have time for that. We understand how precious this human birth is. We could have been born anywhere. We could have not been born at all. But we were born into this body that has the capacity to practice. We were born in a world, in a circumstance where the Buddha Dharma is available. And we have the motivation because there's something inside of us that's saying, I've suffered enough. And so we have this wonderful motivation to practice. So when all of that comes together, that is a miracle. It truly is a miracle. And it's something that we should reflect upon and realize that, oh wow, not everybody has that. There are people right now having bombs explode near them. There are people right now who are so caught in the delusions of their own mind that even though they have access and they have time and they have energy, they just can't even see that the Buddha Dharma is an option. So for you to be here in this place at this time, in this precious body, this makes you, nobly born. If you read some of the books and they say, nobly born, that's what it means. You are nobly born, each and every one of you. So we have this option of formally declaring, I'm going to do this. And that's what it means to take refuge. Now, in Trikaya Buddhism, of course, we do everything a little bit different. In Trikaya Buddhism, our precepts or refuge vows are slightly different. And that's because to walk this path, there's an expectation that the morality is already there. And then built into the vows is also the idea that you won't murder anyone, that you're not going to steal, that you're not going to lie, that you're not going to misuse your senses as far as like sexual misconduct or just getting so caught up in gluttony and like I said, getting intoxicated by your senses. And then the last one, of course, using intoxicants to escape. So those are the typical precepts that people take in Buddhism. Now, it's very simple to take refuge vows, but let me show you what you're getting involved in first. Let's see. So I'll share them for Zoom as well. So I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, and I take refuge in the Sangha. I vow to face the confusion and darkness of my mind with the intent to recognize Buddha nature in all beings, including myself. I vow to honor truth by practicing honesty and humility with myself and others. I vow to practice reciprocity by receiving and giving support within the community of Buddha Dharma practitioners. I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So when we take refuge in the Buddha, we're recognizing that the Buddha is not somebody outside of us. It's not this guy sitting up on a cloud in some fancy chair. You say, oh, Buddha, save me, save me. No. What we're doing when we say I take refuge in the Buddha is we're actually recognizing our own Buddha nature. We're recognizing that that is already within us, that we are a Buddha. And then we take it one step further when we take these vows, that we recognize the Buddha in every other being that we meet. So that strengthens that sense of refuge. So when we're dealing with somebody who's really difficult, instead of seeing all their unfortunate qualities, all those difficulties, those annoying things that bug us, instead we bring forward to our mind that, oh, I have Buddha nature, they have Buddha nature. And then that changes our interaction. Just remembering that. That's how powerful taking refuge in the Buddha is it completely shifts the dynamic from dealing with some annoying person who's not doing what we want them to do. Sometimes that's us. Saying, mind or body, you're not doing what I want to do. But then you say, oh, wait a minute, I'm Buddha. I have Buddha nature. So let me pull that up and then go and do what I needed to do. And when we take refuge in the Dharma, Dharma is the teachings of truth. It is the pathway. We take this vow of honesty and humility, which are very intertwined. To be humble means to recognize what actually is. So if we're telling ourselves a lie to make ourselves feel better, we call ourselves on it. I'm like, oh, wait, I'm going to honor truth here. I'm just, maybe I'm telling myself that I want to do something, but then there's this other part of my mind that is saying, no, I really don't want to do that. That's what creates all the stress that we feel. So by honoring truth, we can short circuit that stress and actually recognize that, okay, what is the truth? Let me be honest with myself. And then we can make adjustments either in our actions or in our mindset. And maybe we wake up in the morning and we're like, oh, I really don't want to go to work today. But maybe I have to go to work because I have to pay bills, because I want to support the things that are important to me. And so in that moment, we can have that honest discussion with ourselves. We can say, okay, I honestly don't want to get up and go to work today. It's too cold out. But maybe I want these other things too. So let me look at that. And you take that maybe 5 seconds to look at that. And then there's this reconciliation that happens where, oh, well, yes, it's true that I really don't want to get up, but I also want to do these things. What do I want more? And it's like, oh, yes, I want to be able to pay my rent. I want to be able to help support these projects financially that I want to support. And in order to do that, I need to get out of bed and go to work. So now, all of a sudden, instead of it being a fight and a struggle, because you took refuge in Dharma, in truth, now it becomes an act of service. So we take refuge in Dharma. And we can find examples of that throughout our day. So pay attention. Just see, where are you being honest and where are you not? Because sometimes it's those little lies. And those are the ones that get us in trouble. Because I read this thing, I can't remember where I read it, but it was so beautiful. It said, every lie, even the tiny ones, breaks the Dharma. And when we keep chipping away at the Dharma with these little lies, then all of a sudden there's a big lie, and then it really breaks. But if we fortify our connection with truth by being honest and being humble, and that means being honest about when we're not being honest, and not using it as an excuse to beat ourselves up, but again, taking that time to reconcile what's going on here. It's an avenue into investigating what is our truth. What do we want more? By being honest in all those little moments, it fortifies the Dharma. So when we're challenged by some big thing, it doesn't break. We're able to stick in our truth, in our honesty. So we take refuge in Dharma. And we take refuge in Sangha. And the Sangha is not just our little tribe, our little group. The Sangha is massive. It goes back thousands of years in this world system, all the way back to Buddha Shakyamuni, all the practitioners of Buddha Dharma. And I don't mean just the casual people who are like, oh yes, I'm Buddhist, I meditate every 6 months. But I mean, there are thousands and thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of people that took these vows very seriously and practiced, even when it was difficult, even when they felt like giving up. They just kept giving everything they were to Dharma, to Buddha. So that is this community of practitioners. That is taking refuge in the Sangha. And our vow is about this sense of reciprocity, because being able to receive help requires us to be vulnerable. It requires us to open. It requires us to be honest and say, oh, I actually need support right now. And we reach out either verbally or internally to the community of practitioners, to the Sangha. And we do that instead of running for an escape into intoxicants, instead of running into escape through sensuality. So it's a very powerful vow. And then on the flip side, of course, we offer giving support. So if somebody that we know of who's a Dharma practitioner reaches out, they open up in a vulnerable way and say, hey, I need somebody to talk to right now, then we're there for them 100%. As much as we are able. And we still respect our boundaries of what we can give, because otherwise we're breaking the Dharma, right? We're not being honest. So we give what is extra when someone's in need. So these are our refuge vows of Trikaya Buddhism. So to do a little, that'd be fun to have a little ceremony. So if you brought a white scarf, you could take it off. If you don't have a white scarf, then anything, you can really use anything for this part. And it could be, I like something wearable, just because I forgot my ring today, so my hand feels all naked. But it could be a little necklace, it can be a piece of clothing, it can just be a rock, anything. Piece of paper. I gave you a piece of paper, you have one. And we say it 3 times, each one separately. So I take refuge in the Buddha, and you guys can all say it with me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
And now the last time you put your scarf on, and it serves as a point of connection. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
So welcome to the path of Trikaya Buddhism. Now, this is something that you can do again whenever you need to, because at one point or another, you will break your refuge vows. You'll be like, oh, I did not see the Buddha in myself. I did not see the Buddha in that person. Or I was not honest in that situation. Or I couldn't practice reciprocity in that moment. My ego got in the way. My attachments got in the way. And at that point, we recognize what happened. And then we say, oh, okay, you know what? I can just take refuge again. And we can say, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha. And we reaffirm our place on the path. And this is a tremendous gift that we give ourselves and others, because when we live and walk the path, then it elevates everyone that we encounter. It elevates our life, and it elevates this entire world. I came across something, I don't know if it's true. It's one of those things I saw on social media, so take it with a grain of salt. But it said somebody somewhere, some scientist, measured the electromagnetic field of the planet. And each human has an electromagnetic field as well. So how you hold your energy, if you hold yourself in a state of loving kindness, it's actually having an impact on the planet itself. So the path isn't just about you. That's how powerful these vows are. So I invite you to take these refuge vows. You don't need somebody to give them to you. That's the cool thing about Buddhism, is that we can just find the Dharma and say, oh yes, I'm going to do that, and do it. Now, on the path of Trikaya Buddhism, there's some different gateways I wanted to share with you as well. Oh, probably. No, that's not it either. To share again. Mm-hmm. Oh, so many screens. So we have these gateways on our pathway, and they're, I guess, milestones, I guess you could say, on our particular path. And that is, it starts all by taking refuge. I mean, even before that, it's just you come and explore, shopping, spiritual shopping. Mm-hmm. It's always good. And then when you decide that, oh, this is the path for me, that at that point you take refuge. And then you practice, and you practice, usually for a year, sometimes more. And at some point you might say, you know what, I really, really want to do this path. This is the one for me. And at that point you become a monk. So we have a little collection of monks. It's a small little pocket pool of monks, and it's growing. So if that's something of interest to you in the future, approach one of the teachers and say, you know what, I think I'm ready to commit, become a monk. And you don't have to shave your head, obviously. We have our hair still. We live and work in the world. We don't wear, I know Jyoti's been pushing for the special robes, and but we don't have that yet. Maybe someday, who knows? We're still a newer lineage, so. And then after you become a monk, then there's the option of becoming a teacher. That requires at least 3 years of study. And then the teacher training program that we're doing now is about 9 months. And then at that point, you're really steeped in practice. And what starts to happen is these awakenings, what we call obtaining the view, where you just kind of have these little satori experiences. But then it's not enough to just pop in to have that expansive view. Now then you have to do the real work of stabilizing it. Because otherwise we're just going up and down, up and down. And there's a point where you just hit this view and you're just like, okay, now, and then we work, and that becomes the new baseline. And then there are more and more awakenings. And then, of course, we start all over again. We begin again. Now, the essentials of the path are, of course, our 3 practices of daily seated meditation, mindfulness, and contemplation. These practices, coupled with faith that enlightenment is possible in this lifetime, brings us into contact with the inherent joy and peace of awareness that's always present. It's ever present. So, in other words, enlightenment's already here. But we have to play this game of going on this path where life is the real teacher. It's not me, it's not anyone else, it's not Rama. It's life is presenting these opportunities for us to be honest and see our own enlightenment in that moment, to resolve these seeming opposites and recognize that that is perfection. And this is the game that we all play together. So I'm very happy that you're here playing. So I think we should do some meditation. So let me close out of YouTube.